Hey guys, welcome to Trader's Edge Crypto. My name is Lawton Ho, and I'm joined here by Benjamin Poole. What's going on, Ben?
Hey, what's up, Lawton? How
What's
you
up?
doing today?
I'm all right. Welcome to Trader's Edge Crypto, where we trade crypto live from 11:30 to 12:15. Apologize for starting a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties. Before we start, a couple things. First of all, we just ask that if you enjoy this type of content, consider liking and subscribing to Verified Investing on YouTube. It really helps the algorithm and helps other people see this type of content. And the second thing is thank you so much to Blowfin for sponsoring us. This is an old promotion that is no longer active. But if you want to trade like us, check out Blowfin, Blofin. If you want exclusive bonuses when you register for an account, make sure to go to the verifiedinvesting.com website, scroll to the very bottom, and click on Blowfin under our sponsors. With that being said, what's going on, Ben? What do you have for us? Is there anything you're looking to potentially trade? I'm actually just scanning the markets myself right now.
Well, the first thing that I'm looking at is Kronos, CROUSDT. It's getting into some support at 21.48. This is a nice little pivot high. The thing to be cautious about, though, is the fact that it's broken below this high pivot after a breakout. So usually this is pretty significant support. If I zoom in, you can actually see that it does have this nice tail, so it got a 5% bounce. However, now that it's back underneath the support area, it is likely to come back down and retest this 21.48 level. And then you've got this upsloping trend line that connects these low pivots right in this area. So I would say my downside target would probably be 18.46. Normally I was going to say 16.39, but as price action takes a little bit longer to get down to this upsloping trend line, it's likely to hit this support level right here at 18.46 before $16 or 16.39. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. This is a prior pivot high as well. So 18.46 is going to be a pretty solid level. Other than that, I'm looking at the overall markets. AI16Z, I know we've traded this in the past, and it's down 16 or 10% on the day. The first level I would have is a retrace to the scene of the crime, which is this downsloping trend line breakout. So we would have to actually make new all-time lows. My first entry would be right here at 70, basically 74.00. So that's basically 7 cents, 7.5 cents. It's the first level that I have. AI16Z, as you can see, is pretty volatile. Giga has gotten rejected at 13924, and now it's falling over. The first level I would have would probably be this green bar open at 10.433. So I know it's still a ways away. Pepe is kind of falling off as well. First level I have on this is 914. Actually, the first level of support is going to be basically 10, 1000 or 1,000, however you want to see it. But when you get into these smaller numbers, I really don't. It's a point.
It's just
0.0001000.
Yeah, no, I got you.
So you're gonna have a lot of support, as you can see in this price action right here. Popcat 2 is rolling over a little bit as well. Nothing as far as any tradable levels quite yet for me. What about you?
No, nothing really. I'm just scrolling through some of the cryptocurrencies, and I don't have terribly too much to potentially enter right now for a long or a short. Nothing is really extended one way or another. The crypto markets are down today, right? Everything is red from what I see pretty much. But nothing's close to a bounce level for me at this point in time. But we can take a look at some of the questions. And you actually kind of answered one of the questions. Matt was saying, can you please take a look at Kronos for this week? And I think you kind of touched on that, no?
Yeah, I did. So that's where I could see Kronos going. That's actually one of the reasons that I brought up Kronos. Answer that question.
Lupa says, love you guys for doing this. Nervous Network CKB. Is that a stock? CKB USDT. Okay. Seems to be making a major inverse head and shoulders. I can take this one, Ben. Let me show my charts. It's a major inverse head and shoulders on the daily. What's the upside we can expect? Unfortunately, this is not a valid pattern. I'm assuming you're talking about this, right? Like this. This is not valid. You know why? Lupa? This is not valid, but if you and I wouldn't really consider this an inverse head and shoulders pattern, but if you wanted to do something like this, this would be valid. And the reason why, I'll give you a hint. The reason why this would be valid and that first initial one would not be valid is because of this neckline. So in order for an inverse head and shoulders to be valid, you have to have a down sloping or flat neckline, ideally down sloping, right? And the way that you determine the measured move is you take the level from the bottom or the top of the head or bottom of the head, depending if it's a head and shoulders or inverse head and shoulders. You take it to the neckline, and then you put that to where the break is. The measured move for this move is 62.65% to the upside. Now, do I anticipate CKB going up 62%? No, I don't. I usually, whenever I talk about measured moves, particularly head and shoulders when they're this big, for me, if the stock moves above more than 50% of that measured move, I consider, and then pulls back, I consider that move done, right? If it goes more than 50% of that measured move, I'm like, all right, it probably already moved. So that is a valid head and shoulders, but this head and shoulders, right, with this kind of upsloping neckline is not valid. It's actually, because this is upsloping, this is actually a level of resistance for CKB where you'd anticipate a potential pullback from the third hit of this upsloping trend line. Okay.
I was going to say that's the nice thing, right? Even though it's not a valid inverse head and shoulders pattern, you still have additional resistance levels if it does decide to head higher, right? So the beautiful thing about an inverse head and shoulders pattern, what people like about them is they give you an upside target.
Yeah.
So the same idea is just look at where the next resistance is. If it can break that double top right there, that's pretty recent on the charts. I can understand why you're looking at it though. There's a lot of these altcoins that are dropping, and right now, if it went back to a double top, it would be up over 800%. And so there's a lot of thought process like, hey, I don't want to miss the next bull run. So where can I find the cheapest, most beaten up altcoin and hope for a run coming up?
Yep. Finkel says, what do you guys think of the quantum problem for Bitcoin? And do you think quantum proof coins will be the future? Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that quantum problem for Bitcoin. Are you familiar with that, Ben?
So quantum is going to be a problem for everything. Quantum computing, if the thought process behind a quantum computing being able to figure out,
like, mine faster.
Well, Bitcoin can only be mined a certain amount at a time per day, right? So it's capped at a specific amount. So I think the idea is that quantum computing, if it's good enough, then it could actually break not only the code, but could they duplicate Bitcoin? I mean, it's possible, but also hack into everybody's accounts and figure out what passwords and stuff are. That's a possibility, right? But if it does that, then you can also say, well, then what's going to happen with all of our bank accounts? Because quantum computing does as much informational data in one day as it would take like 1,000 years or something with today's computers. So there's a lot of processing power that is required, or that you can get out of quantum computing. Could be a problem, right? Especially if we can start figuring out, like, the idea behind Bitcoin is that it's more decentralized and it allows people to bypass the current system. So we could create something with quantum computing that would completely negate all of the altcoins. It's possible. I don't know if it's going to happen. It's still a long time in the future before we get to that, though. But anything's possible, right?
Yeah. Yep. That's like above my brain capacity to understand. Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So next question. Lippy says, and I'll let Ben take this. Lippy says, is there any upside for Ethereum since it seems to be breaking the lower end of the parallel again? Upside because it's breaking the lower end of the parallel again.
Well, she's wondering, is there any upside, because it's breaking, is it more favorable to the downside now?
It should be to the downside if it's breaking parallel.
If it's breaking an upsloping parallel channel to the downside, then it's more likely to favor a move down.
Especially at these prices of Ethereum. Ethereum's
right.
also, yeah.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw this trend line that I see. So right now we're still technically in an uptrend on Ethereum. It's not until we start breaking this low at 42,544. At that point, we will then be in a downtrend. So a couple things to look for, right? So you could consider this a shoulder, awkward head, and this could be putting in the secondary shoulder. Or another way you can look at it is you got this top here, and then you got this low pivot, and then you got a lower high. And if you create a lower low, then that creates us into a downtrend. So is there more upside? I mean, if you can start breaking this high right here that it just put in at $4,770, sure. But this more favors a move to the downside, in my opinion.
All right. Let's see here. Next question. Tommy says, is DOT.USDT returning to the scene of the crime of the wedge pattern breakout on the daily? Wedge pattern breakout on the daily. Okay. So I'm assuming you're talking about a wedge like this, and then a wedge something like this, right? Something roughly like this. Yeah, you could say that if you like this wedge, which looks decent. I don't love the bottom, the action on the bottom, but it's fine. I like, at the very least, I like this trend line, this down sloping trend line on the top, right? So even if it's not a wedge, it's still a good down sloping trend line. Yeah, you did have a nice breakout, and look where it pulled back, right? It pulled back 12%. Basically, at this high pivot here, you have a bunch of price action here. Lots of pivots around that area. That's where it pulled back. And it does look like it is retracing to this trend line break. Now, when you're trading this, you have to kind of decide. There's a couple things you could do. You could buy right on the retrace for another bounce if you think it's likely to have another leg up. But just know that on that break, it did move up 12%, right? So if you think there's more upside, if you think it ultimately maybe gets to this pivot up here, maybe these pivots here, this price action all through up here, gets above $5, then sure, you can rebuy on the retrace to that trend line. It's also towards the lows of the charts, right? So it could be a decent buying opportunity. Or you could wait to see if it closes below this trend line and starts heading lower, and then you can buy on the bottom of this upsloping trend line here, or are the lows of these pivots on a dot? Do you have any different analysis, Ben?
Oh, I'm not even paying attention.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm looking at, I'm scouring the markets. AI16Z is looking decent for a potential trade.
Like this sounds just like a made up.
AI16Z.
Yeah,
I mean, really, kind of does, right?
you're just throwing. Sounds like the name of Elon Musk's kids. He's gonna name his kid. All right, let's see it. Oh yeah, it does look pretty decent for a day trade, right?
Yep. All right, I'm gonna look to get in. I'll let you guys know. I'm looking at 105. 10. I need it to drop a little bit more. So if it comes back in, 10342. 10342. I'm not in yet. I'll let you guys know. I'm going to do a 1/10 of my whole portfolio with 3x leverage. I don't know why it's not letting me have leverage. Oh, man.
103.5. 103.5.
103.47. I'm trying to. I think I'm in futures. I need to go spot.
I have it here on futures.
Yeah, but it's not letting me do it on Blowfin for some reason.
103.47.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I'm doing it in futures. 103.5. Gosh dang it. All right. All right, I have my order out now. Yeah, 103.5 will be my entry now. If it comes back in. I was trying to do it in spot and I needed to do it in futures.
Yep.
That was the only way it was going to allow me to do 3 times leverage. So I'm not in yet. 1035. 1035 is where I'm looking to get in. So, and I will be using Blowfin. This will be 10% of my portfolio with 3 times leverage. And I will let you guys know if I get filled. It's 10. So what I'm seeing in the trading view is going to be a little bit different than when we see in the Blowfin account.
Do you want to share your Blowfin screen?
I can. Yeah, let me see.
You can see that he has his order there, guys, and you can see his leverage is 3x on the top right hand of your screen. And he can go up to 150x leverage if he really wanted to.
Or it looks like
it
you can only do 50
on this one, I guess.
All right. What I like about this potential trade setup is you've got this nice dip almost to basically 10 cents. This continued sell-off. I love price action like this. And then you notice there's also this down-sloping trend line. It hasn't broken this down-sloping trend line quite yet, but this was in anticipation of a move up. All right, well, looks like that was the level.
Well, you could always get in on a break of the down sloping trend line.
Yeah, maybe on a retrace.
All right, while you're taking a look at this, let me ask some questions. All right, Mancol says, "Hey Ben, can we say that Mint USDT has RSI divergence or not?" You don't have to show. You can just say yes or no.
On the daily, weekly, on the
No, there's no. I don't have a time frame.
okay. I would say no. It does not have negative RSI divergence.
Or any RSI divergence. Okay.
Well, it definitely wouldn't be positive RSI divergence because it's at the higher end.
All right.
But no, as far as the negative RSI divergence.
All right. Rick says, "Have you guys looked at the topping tail in Solana?" Let me see. Solana, does that fit the criteria for a topping tail? Looks like it does. We haven't particularly seen it, looked at it, but I did have it trading in this kind of wedge, even though it's an upsloping wedge, right? Which favors a move lower, actually. I had it break up and out, and it pushed up to this high pivot here, around 245, 250 around 250, then pulled back. And I had this drawn on my chart already, right? Because I talked about it in my AMA. So actually, I was saying that on the break, you could either go long on the break or wait for a retrace. And it looks like it's coming back. So, and I do see that topping tail. So what you want to see is how Solana reacts to this upsloping trend line. If you can break below and confirm, you're likely looking at a move down at least 10 to 12% on Solana, right? But I would just be watching this retrace here. If we can see if we can get a bounce off a retrace to this trend line. On Solana, Lee wants to know if Bitcoin is showing a bull flag. I mean, you could say that it's in the baby steps, right? You have this nice move up and this kind of sideways downward consolidation. If it continues, you could say that, but it's like 3 candles, right? You really want to see a couple more candles, especially when the flagpole is not, big. Tommy says, "What are the buy levels in Solana and XRP on this recent pullback?" So back to Solana, I would consider getting in on a retrace to this trend line, right? And I would probably stop out. I'd probably stop out like 5% lower and look for a move up at least 10% higher and have a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio or 1-to-2 risk to reward ratio. But as far as XRP, where to buy XRP on a pullback, I had this pivot here as a potential buy level. It looks like it tagged it today and had a decent bounce, about 2% bounce. Had this nice down sloping trend line On a longer time frame, if it came down maybe 10% lower, retrace to this down sloping trend line that it broke up and out of, that would be my next buy level, like similar to Solana. That was a really bad drawing. This would be my buy level on XRP. How's your potential trade going, Ben?
It's not. It's broken that down sloping trend line.
Darn.
It did hasn't retraced yet. I don't like it on a retrace. 1035 was still my level though.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'll read a question for you to answer in the meantime. Jessica says, is Ethereum Classic ETC USDT seems to be rejected by former support? Any idea where a nice level is to accumulate Ethereum Classic?
See, I love these questions. My request for you guys is to be a little bit more specific on your overall time horizon for these things, because I can give you a support level to buy, and then it can go up 10%, and then it drops, and then you'll say, well, your level was terrible. It only gave me 10%. But then in 4 years, it goes up even higher, right? So it really depends on your time horizon. Are you looking to swing trade this? Are you looking to day trade this? Are you looking for like a casual 15, 20% move? Are you looking for a 300 to 400% move? Are you looking to hold on long term? You just say, all right, I love the idea behind Ethereum Classic. I think this is a good hodl position. So I'm already in here. Where's an additional ad level? There's so many different factors. When you guys just ask really basic questions, it doesn't allow me to advise, or I'm not a financial advisor, right? But I can't tell you like, hey, here's the first level, here's the second level. Now extend this out 5 years and you're going to, here's where it could be, right? So it really depends on time horizon. I know people who have been in Bitcoin since, 30,000, and I've told them, hey, here's a lot of resistance. They don't care where the resistance is. On a pullback, they're going to continue to buy. And so their dollar cost average actually starts increasing because they add over and over and over again, right? Because their long-term horizon is 250,000. So when you guys ask these questions, they're great questions, and I appreciate all of them. Try to narrow it down. Hey, I'm looking to swing trade this. I like this for a short term. I would love to be able to see where the next support level is so I can take a 15% gain on this. Okay. I might not get those as accurate, but what I can do is at least say, all right, well, here's how you could trade this potentially. All right. So let's go into Ethereum Classic, right? Let me go ahead and remove this. Stop sharing that screen. All right. Ethereum Classic. Right now, it's kind of a weaker altcoin. You've got this beautiful rounded bottom. However, the bottom never got to the upper end to create a really good rounded bottom. Now, if Ethereum Classic breaks below this pivot area, right? So you've got all this support in this area right now where the lower, where this rounded bottom came from. And then you have this high pivot right here. If price action starts getting here, your next level of support is going to be right about $19. If it starts dropping there, then it's going to likely get down to 1506. Another thing you could do is say, all right, well, I know that the lows from 2025 were $12.64. So you take a fib tool, take the low end, take the high end, and say, all right, well, based on the fact that Fibonacci retracements happen often, it's already gotten a bounce at the 50% Fibonacci retracement. It's likely to get a bounce back on the 50% retracement, and you could look for 7, 10, even 15%. Your next level of support is going to be the 618. So if it continues to fall, like I said, through those levels, your next level of support is the 618 fib retracement. you notice you extend this over and you've got a lot of price action in this area and even got this low pivot. So it could go a little bit lower than that 618 fib retracement, but that would be a great starting position. And then if you're looking to add to the position, the 786 fib retracement, additional support, you got this low pivot right here, which lines up almost exactly with the 786. So you know there's going to be additional support for this. And so if you're looking to dollar cost average, maybe start with like a 1-2% of your portfolio. It drops a little bit more, goes down to the 618. All right, go ahead and pick up some more. And then the 786, and then even a double bottom, because it could happen, right? You could get all the way down to this double bottom here at $12.70. Another thing you could look for is, here's another trend line that you could have or watch for support. If it gets up, or excuse me, if it drops down into the support level, especially if it hits the 78 or the 618 fib retracement, this would be the third hit of this upsloping trend line. So you know it's going to be additional support. So a lot of different ways to play this. And then on the upside, you'll look for resistance to this high pivot where it just had this last weekend. And then ultimately this high pivot, its price action has to get up above $25.93. So I hope all of that made sense. And again, if you could just provide us a little bit more information, that would be great. Just kind of going forward. All right, guys, I just got filled 1035 on AI16Z.
You want to share? Yeah. 1035.
Yep. It's a little bit below that now. Had this nice bounce. I was thinking about taking it off the table, but this thing can move. I mean, like really move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this fib extension tool or this fib tool. So the 618, it's already pierced that. So a pierce below 10.00 is going to be additional support, the 786 fib retracement. I will look to stop out here at a break below this low pivot point right here on a 15-minute closing basis. So just know that I will be potentially stopping out of this trade if it closes below this level on a 15-minute closing basis. I'm going to go ahead and protect ourselves at this double bottom area.
All right, and I have it up there on the screen. Make sure that's correct. 1035, 110.
Yep, that's
leverage.
it.
All right, cool.
Leverage.
Yeah, and then Alex says, is this a counter trade on AI16Z that Ben is trying to get into? Isn't this against the trend? ?
Yes, I'm a counter trend trader. Absolutely. So I look for support levels on a stock that's dropping. I don't go with the trend.
Against the green.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what else we got. While Ben watches that, Matt says, can you please take a look at Link for this week? Thank you for everything you do. Absolutely. Let's check out Link. See, I have a bunch of lines on Link. Had this nice upsloping trend line that it's starting to pull back from. I'm looking for support down here at this low pivot here, around 5% lower, around $21.86. If you can get below there, you're likely to see further downside. And again, at the $20 level. So around $22 and then $20 flat are two levels that I anticipate potential bounce on AI16, or not AI16, on Link USDT. Michael says, hey guys, is this a good long from a down sloping trend line? And then set a chart. You need to go to your chart. Chart looks good. You could potentially re-enter this on a retrace to that trend line. What else do we got? I have Ben answer this. Mian saying, Are you bullish in the midterm for Bitcoin? Say 3 months from now.
Am I bullish on Bitcoin?
3 months
No.
from now, though.
No.
No. All right. Why not?
But things can change from day to day. It really depends on what price action does. So you've got this break of this down sloping trend line. So it has changed course, right? So I was mentioning earlier, you've got this high pivot and this low pivot. This is a higher low and a lower low. A lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Now we've recaptured this pivot high. And so now we're back in an uptrend. So the same thing on the upside, you're going to look from the downside, right? So you get this pivot low, a high, a higher low, a higher high. So what I'm looking for is a continuation of that. If Bitcoin continues this momentum, stays above this upsloping trend line, then it can recapture this $123,231 level, then absolutely I'm bullish. Right now, we're still kind of in a downtrend based on the fact that we've got this break of this upsloping trend line. And this is a pretty major upsloping trend line. We're going to need to do some work on Bitcoin for us to get above that level. Once we do, okay, fine. You've swayed me. Now, all of a sudden, Bitcoin has turned the corner, and now it's going to go higher. So right now, it's still bullish. I mean, not bearish for me. This price action is bearish for me.
All right. Let me see. There's no more questions right now that I see. No more new questions I see. So if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. For now, we'll just concentrate on Ben's trade here because it is very exciting.
Oh, yeah. Super exciting. All right, we're starting to push it up a little bit more. Almost back to our break even. I really like this on the 10-minute time frame. Mian, are you bullish long term on Bitcoin? I know there are a lot of people who are, and they've been bullish on Bitcoin for a while, and they've been right. So I'd be curious to hear what you have to say. What do you think, Lawton? Are you bullish Bitcoin?
Dude, people are saying that Bitcoin is going to be worth like $1 million each or whatever eventually in like 10 years or something. I don't buy it, to be honest. I feel like personally, to me, it's these things, particularly cryptocurrency, they only have as much value as you give it, you're willing to give it, right?
Yep.
And I feel like with all these crypto coins, unless there's actual utility, like it's just a rug pull waiting to happen. But for Bitcoin, it's a rug pull that's been continuously added and propped up over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? You have institutions putting their money into Bitcoin, and for me, it's like difficult. Like I'll acknowledge that there's money to be made on cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin, right? Going long, going short, trading it, absolutely. But I think long term, like the fact that it has no value if the market eventually crashes and has a large correction, right? When people are going to be struggling to pay their bills and buy food, right? When unemployment rate spikes, like the last thing I think people are going to be doing is putting money into Bitcoin or digital assets that are essentially like useless, right? They're only worth what someone is willing to pay for them. So that's what I think. That's a very Debbie Downer overall perspective of crypto, but that's what I believe.
All right.
Do you disagree with me?
No, people talk about Bitcoin as being more anti-inflationary. So if you put your money in Bitcoin, you don't have to necessarily worry about the devaluation of like your currencies, right? So,
but you can worry about it dropping 5% in a day.
yeah, and that's the hard part for me to wrap my head around. So, if I had $100,000 and I bought a Bitcoin right now, if I have the same $100,000 in a year from now, and I put it in Bitcoin, I could only get half a Bitcoin, but at the same time, I could get 2 Bitcoin. So really depends on which way the markets are going, right? And if I understand from a long-term perspective, if you're going to hodl it and you don't care what it does short-term, fine. That's great. Bitcoin can do whatever. But ultimately, I think people are going, like you were mentioning, are going to have to cash out some of it, and then that'll be the deciding factor is what happens when the economy isn't doing quite as well. When the inflation, when you're having to buy, like beef and chicken and bread and all that's inflated, you're still going to have to spend the Bitcoin that you did. And now to get more of the same Bitcoin, if Bitcoin is $110,000, now you're getting less Bitcoin that you're buying for the same amount of money that you did 6 months ago. So
yeah, I don't know. I feel you. I mean, but people say that gold has no value too. The only value of Bitcoin is that's true. Well, gold is like it's a luxury good, right? So I guess luxury goods lose their value, lose their demand during recessions and things like that. But I mean, gold is still something that has been, I guess, treasured and valued throughout all of human history. I can't tell you with certainty that Bitcoin's going to be worth anything in like 100 years from now, right? It could be worth $1 million per coin, or it could be worth literally nothing, right?
Right.
It's just worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. Nice bottoming tail on AI16Z.
No, it doesn't have a bottoming tail.
On the 15-minute.
On the 15-minute? I'm going to just go ahead and stop out here, guys. You guys, if you want, you could put a trailing stop in. I'm just going to go ahead and exit my trade here. Take my minimal gain. Fortunately, we got a trade. It wasn't.
Yeah, we got a trade, small trade. If you guys want to stay on it, it still looks pretty decent.
Yeah, I basically closed it out for a break even. 1035, 1036 was my trade.
It's just difficult, guys, to force a trade if the markets aren't really moving, right? We do our best to, but again, we're not in control of the crypto markets.
Yeah. So the way you could trade this now, if you wanted to hang on to it, is put a stop at a close below this low pivot on a 15-minute closing basis. If this bottoming tail, I don't even think it's a bottoming tail. Let me do the fib on this. Unfortunately, it's not a bottoming tail. So it would have had to have closed in the top 25%. So it didn't actually close in the top 25%. So technically it's not a bottoming tail. But if you wanted to treat it like one, you would just put a stop at any close below on a 15-minute closing basis below 1023. So that's how you do it. And then if you switch to the 1 minute chart, you do have this nice couple down sloping trend lines. This down sloping trend line that it got above, retraced, got back below, finally got above it again. And so if price action can stay above this down sloping trend line, then you have the secondary down sloping trend line. If price gets above that, then I think 1057 is where it's likely to head back to. So anyway.
All right. Cool.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on this exciting episode of
Trader's Edge Crypto. Traders Edge.
We have so many different shows, man.
Yeah, it's
all
sorry.
right. Traders Edge Crypto Live, you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Traders Edge Crypto Live. If you like this content, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you want more of what we just did,
questions and
I'm
answers
going live in 10 minutes.
Yep.
Or the verified AMA, where you can literally ask me anything. So I'll see you guys in 10 minutes. All right.
Yep. You guys have a great rest of your day. Like, follow, subscribe, ring that bell.
Bye, guys.
Take care.